This discussion that we're going to have today has been around since the beginning of time. Is there something more than to this existence than just being born and dying? Is there something bigger? Is there something greater? Is there something more powerful? Is there something more wonderful? Like, what's going on here? So many times people take the approach that all there is this life, right? Like, we're born and we die and that's it. And if that brings comfort to you, if that brings a sense of inner peace, if that brings joy even to you, then don't ever change. One of the things I've learned over the years, it's taken me a long time to learn this, is that I don't know everything. And the other thing is that there can be alternative viewpoints that are absolutely perfect as long as it doesn't hurt anyone. As long as we're not going around telling people, oh, your belief in the afterlife is a bunch of crap. And if you don't believe in the afterlife, if you don't believe there's anything more than being born and dying, and that brings peace and that brings joy, as I mentioned earlier, that's fine. There's no need to try to convince other people who believe differently that they're wrong. Just like it's not, appropriate for someone who believes there's more than just being born and dying to argue with someone who says there's nothing more than this. It's like whatever you believe in, I want you to hold on to until it's time for you to change your beliefs. Now, I will say that, I was raised in a Christian household. I was raised to believe in God and heaven and hell and purgatory and all kinds of different things, and over the years I became an all-faith minister, and as becoming an all-faith minister, I had to be trained in all the major religions and to have a really good idea of at least what their basic philosophies are, and then I was able to help people regardless of what their religious belief are, right? And if someone has a religious belief that says there's no afterlife, I don't push that. I don't try to convince them that they're wrong. I just say, okay, great, let's make this life the best life possible. If I'm working with someone that does believe in an afterlife, I say, great, let's figure out what do we do now in order to make the afterlife even more exceptional, if that's possible. Now, the answer to the question, is there more to life than just being born and dying? I will tell you, I can confirm 100% that there is. I wasn't able to confirm 100% that there is until my mother and father passed away. My mom 3 years ago, my dad 2 years ago. I think it was something like that. I'm not good with numbers and years. I'm really not. But it was about 3 and 2 years ago they died. And in that experience, oh my Lord, it completely changed my belief system. And I'll tell you why. I had an incredible relationship with my mother and father after I became more mature. And I relished that relationship more than you could ever believe. I used to post them constantly on Facebook, social media. I love them so much. And I wanted the world to know that even though I had a very difficult childhood with my mom and dad, that we had made up in the most beautiful ways, and I love them more than anything, and I will proudly show them off. And I proudly showed them off for probably 10 years. I mean, I don't know if there was more than a couple of days that would go by that I wouldn't post a picture of my mom and dad. Now, what has this got to do with, is there more to life than just being born and dying? It has a lot to do with it. When my mom died, I had reached out and told her that I wanted to connect with her at the deepest level possible. She had passed over, and I loved her so much, and I was in such deep grief. I was crying hysterically for 10 months. I was writing every day. I have next to my bed probably 10 to 15 journals of just letters to my mom and then letters to my dad after they had both passed. And then all of a sudden at the 10-month mark, my mind was open to understand there's something so much bigger than this life here. There's something so much grander. Now, I'm going to back up for a second and tell you that I have interviewed over the past 40 years some of the most amazing people that have gone into the light and come back, that they have passed over, been pronounced dead, and yet they came back. Betty Eadie is probably one of the most famous names in the 80s of a woman that wrote a book about her experiences of being pronounced dead and then going into the light and being told that her time was not up. She needed to return. So, there's been all these stories. Oh my gosh, the life of Billy Fingers, a powerful story about the afterlife visiting us here in the now. So my mind was open and it happened to other people, but until it happened to me, I wasn't fully able to embrace it. And then it happened. And then it happened again. My mom visited me in the most conscious state you could ever imagine. We had a conversation multiple times. And in that experience, I understood that life is everlasting. Everlasting from the point of view that you can communicate with people that have passed on. We have to have a decent relationship with them. We have to invite them into our physical world. We have to, what I call, put out, if you will, steps and stages that we invite them and say, I'd love to communicate with you, and ever since doing this, I've worked with so many clients and they're doing the same thing. I have a client that I've worked with a year. Her husband died unexpectedly. And we went into all of this new understanding of eternal, everlasting life now, not just when we pass away, but we can be connected to eternal, everlasting life right now. And she was very open to it. And her husband constantly is leaving signs for her that he's around. It's been a year and the signs aren't letting up. And see, this is where I know there's so much more than this life. When you can communicate with people who have passed over, who are on the other side, when you can have conversations with them, and people will say you're crazy, people will say you're nuts, and that's okay, because it's happened so many times with my mom. My mom has shown herself, her face to me multiple times. My dad only one time, but my dad has come to me in many other ways. I have felt my personality changing. I have called to my dad. My dad is so measured. He was so measured. He was so grounded. I'm so emotional. I can be so out of control at times. And yet I've found myself since my dad's visitations and my visitations to him asking him, could you please help me become more measured? Could you please help me become more like you? I have these relationships. I have these communications, and it's working. And I want this world to know. I will teach you how to create gateways so that you can communicate with people that have passed over. It's not unusual. It's been going on since the beginning of time, but in mass consciousness, and there's many religions that don't want us to know this. And so we have to break free. And I'm only telling you this from my personal experience. And then again, it's backed up from MDs, a medical doctor that passed over that told me his story. I've interviewed so many people that tell me that life is eternal and that the other side can come here. And I found it to be true. And now it gives me a greater reason to reach out to my mom and dad every day, to look for their signs, to try to be more like them, because they had much to teach me while they were alive that I did not learn, that I'm learning now. If I can help you at all, reach out to me at talkdavid.com. This is a passion of mine. This is something I love to discuss and help people with. Reach out to me at talkdavid.com. Let's talk. And there's also 4 books there for free. Let's heal together. You've been tuned into David Essel Live, the most positive podcast in the universe. Just go to buzzsprout.com, Google my name, and you'll find thousands upon thousands of hours of interviews and podcasts. Until we meet again, I'm David Essel. Have a beautiful day.